Professor, did you think that Twitter or that tweet was going to blow up to get to this point?
Oh no, never in a no, not at all. I thought it would. Thought a few people might take notice, but no, not to the extent that it did.
Professor, okay, so on the tweet, what was the original intention behind the tweet?
Well, and this is a point I've been making for years. This isn't something new for me. I've been trying to raise awareness of the condition of the LSU campus for a long time, sometimes in juxtaposition with the very nice athletic facilities that student athletes have, but often just pointing out that a large part of the LSU campus is in really bad shape, that students do not have the facilities that they pay for, they deserve, and it's certainly not befitting of what we want to consider a flagship university or a major research one university in the United States. And my point is just that it's, in this case with athletics, it's a best of times, worst of times situation for a lot of students on this campus.
Have you ever gone to the Capitol and taken to the table and testified in favor of renovating facilities on campus and given your experience on campus and your expertise? Have you given the legislators kind of what the state of the facilities are?
Oh yeah, well, I've not testified before a committee. I helped organize a tour of the library a couple of years ago and recruited. Actually, through my Twitter account, by shaming a bunch of them. I had some students who were trying to organize a tour and get some legislators to come, and no one was coming. So I through my Twitter account, I started hectoring a few legislators. We got about a dozen, the governor and about a dozen legislators to tour the library to see the condition of it. And I went along and tried to point out some things they ought to pay attention to. Sadly, not much has come of that. The library is still there, and there's still no real plan to replace it.
So, Professor, one of my big takeaways in just reading about all of this and reading about fundraising from private donors on the academic side versus the athletic side, one of my big takeaways is that LSU does a very good job athletically of raising money, but academically they do not. Now, I think, in my opinion, those can exist kind of independently, right? So my main takeaway is that LSU needs to get better at fundraising academically. How do you respond to that idea?
Well, I agree. I think that, and that is part of my criticism. My criticism is not of athletics. I'm not saying that student athletes don't deserve the nicest facilities that money can buy, and that the money that's raised on their behalf by the Tiger Athletic Foundation is somehow wrong or it shouldn't happen. My argument is that LSU and the people of the state and the legislature and the governor ought to do better by the flagship university and by other students. The vast majority of students on this campus are not athletes. They're just regular kids who are trying to get an education and contribute to the betterment and the economy and the growth of the state, and we're not doing right by them. So I'm not criticizing athletics. I'm criticizing the people of the state, the legislature, and yes, the people who run this university, who I don't think they haven't found the right strategy for outraising athletics, because we're the only SEC school whose contributions to athletics are greater than contributions to academics.
That is true. From 2010 to 2014, that was the case. I'm like LSU. If that's not the case now, release new numbers. I haven't seen any new numbers, so that's all we can go by.
I want to get your thoughts after the press release that came out yesterday from Scott Woodward talking about reevaluating the fund transfer policy. But first, on day one, when Woodward got here, he talked about unity and getting in the same direction. He wanted the physics department to be as good as the football department. What does that look like in practice to what is being practiced today on campus? I mean, how do you think that operates?
Well, here's the thing. I think the quality of education at LSU is fantastic, and students get a great education at LSU. There's just a tremendous collection of scholars across the campus that maybe gets lost in all of this. The facilities that they're operating in are often not optimal and are often substandard. But look, I've had a number of students who've left the Manship School and gone to Harvard Law School, gotten into Princeton and other Ivy League schools. We give students a great education, and we ought to be talking about that more and celebrating that, because I think that's how, by telling the story, those students who come from nothing and end up doing great things, achieving in all kinds of ways, we tell the story and we build pride. The football team, the athletic program in general, is really good at telling its story. We've got to get better at telling our story, because right now the story is that LSU is kind of run down and it's a second-rate university. It's run down, but it's not a second-rate university. We deserve facilities that are that match the quality of the people out there.
And we're talking to Professor Robert Mann, LSU MassComm professor, and you've been at LSU for a while now, Professor. And just as an outsider looking in, one of my biggest issues, one of my things that really frustrates me is when you look 06 to 2016, Louisiana had the largest divestment in higher ed in the entire country, slashing about $500 million of that budget. I guess what was it like watching that firsthand, and then how do you learn to operate in this new setting? Like, that's not unique to Louisiana. It was the largest, but everywhere people seem to be divesting from higher ed as far as tax dollars go. How do you make up for that difference and then get the facilities that you're talking about?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Louisiana, when I came to LSU in 2006, 75% of the school's budget was state appropriations, 25% was tuition and fees, self-generated funds, and contributions by supporters of the university. Today, that's flipped. It's 75% self-generated funds, 25% state appropriations, and we did it more and faster than just about any other state, if not any other state. So we've got to get back to the public and the legislature regarding what we do at LSU and everywhere else in Louisiana, and all the universities and colleges around the state who've suffered sometimes more than we have. We've got to get back to understanding that this, look, football's fun. It's great. It's good for the local economy, but it is not the driver of our economy the way our educated populace is. And we've got to regard higher education and education in general as our salvation. And we for some reason, we just don't see it as being that important to our future. And I don't understand how we ever got in this situation, but here we are. LSU's got to do a better job. The legislature's got to do a better job. We've all got to do a better job of telling people and helping them understand why what we do is so important to the future of the state.
Professor Bob Mann joining us here off the bench, ESPN New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Alexandria, MassComm professor over at LSU School of Journalism over there at the Manship School. He's on Twitter at RT Mann Jr. You can also read about or find out about his book, Becoming Ronald Reagan, at becomingronaldreagan.com. There's a $1 billion initiative right now in raising funds on the academic side, Fierce for the Future. Do you have confidence in the leadership that can be attained?
Well, yeah, I think I don't know. I'm not intimately involved or aware of what they're doing, and a lot of those efforts are sort of atomized around the university, spread out. Every unit is raising money for its own needs, which is the way it should be. And this goes back to maybe a part of your earlier question. I think that we can raise a lot of money for scholarships. We can raise a lot of money for professorships and endowed chairs and supporting research about students and faculty. We need to do that, and I think that's what that's designed to do. On the other part of it, which I think maybe some of this is aimed at, but it's not going to do it all, and that is that for a new library, for example, or for the renovation of some of the really major buildings, the historic buildings on the Quad, that's going to take hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's not going to be raised probably in that fundraising drive. It's going to take probably a gift by someone of $50 million to get us a new library, and that's only going to be half or 30% of what a new library is going to cost. And then LSU is going to have to go to the legislature and ask the legislature to give them the rest of the money and the capital outlay bill whenever that happens. And that's really hard. I mean, how many people in Louisiana are capable of giving $50 million to a building at LSU? You could probably count them on one hand. And so I don't know where that money is going to come from. It's probably not going to come from this fundraising drive. It's going to come from a one-on-one with someone who really cares about the students of the school having a new library. And then even after that money's in the bank, the work is not even halfway done.
You saw the press release yesterday from new AD Scott Woodward talking about reevaluating the school's fund transfer policy. They've been doing that since 2012 officially, longer unofficially. When you see that money's not coming to the academic side anymore, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I mean, my initial reaction is disappointment, and maybe the timing was really bad. Maybe they could have waited a few weeks to make that announcement on the heels of what happened last week. I think the optics of it aren't good. But
do you think your tweet spurred it? Do you think your tweet had anything to do with it?
No, I don't think so, because I had some conversations with people who told me that this was coming. I mean, it's probably just a consequence of there's either declining or not growing revenues over there in the athletic department, and at some point they just can't do it anymore. The budget of LSU is about $500 million a year. $10 million is not going to take the university down, but it could mean the difference between pay raises for faculty or not, or it could mean a significant. It could have a significant impact for some people. My hope is, though, that by doing this heightens the need for the legislature and the people of the state to step up and support the university. It is kind of crazy that the athletic department is supporting the academic side in this way. I mean, it shouldn't be that we shouldn't need the athletic department to support academics. It just shouldn't be that way. And maybe this is the right thing to do. I just hope that it doesn't hurt the university.
Professor Mann, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
On Twitter, at RTMann Jr. You can pick up a copy of his book, Becoming Ronald Reagan, at becomingronaldreagan.com.